Hey everyone, Nubkeks here, and welcome back to Heroes of the Storm. We're going to be doing an unranked game here today, testing out a hero that I don't really normally play at all, ever. I'm just getting a feel for how that hero is and how they're going to work. So if you take a look at the team comps, I was the final pick, and I think there's 3 reasons why the Leoric pick actually works pretty well right here in this game, maybe at least 3. But anyway, well, number 1, a precursor reason was that Muradin was open, and I could pick Muradin. And that might have worked better in this composition because, you know, Muradin, probably the best warrior at the moment. But I play a lot of Muradin. I'm not going to learn anything new about Muradin playing in an unranked draft game. So that would be a waste of, 15, 20 minutes of learning time. So screw that. Leoric is what we're going to pick. And I think Leoric works quite well here, like I said, for 3 reasons. So number 1, looking at the enemy team comp, basically just mostly based around the enemy team comp. They have ETC and Tyrael. And Kharazim is their support, then Gazlo and Gul'dan as their damage dealers. So number 1, they have a very tanky team. ETC Tyrael, they've got double warrior. Then they've got a melee support, and then a melee damage dealer with Kharazim and Gazlo. And of course, melee heroes have more health than ranged heroes do. And then the one exception to the rules, they have Gul'dan as their ranged damage dealer, who off the top of my head, I'm pretty sure has the lowest, the highest health. It's like the tankiest range damage dealer in the game. Off the top of my head, I think that's correct. Well, I mean, Gaul would be an exception, but that doesn't really count. But I think he is the tankiest damage dealer, so that's kind of cool. And we can use that a bit to our, basically our advantage is that Leoric, he does a lot of max health damage, and it's pretty nice then for him to go up against a tanky team. His Drain Hope, his W, is going to be pretty effective against that. Number 2 as well is that they have very low and very sustained damage output, which Leoric's also going to thrive against. It's not like they have high single target damage output, something like a Rainer that could tear through Leoric pretty quickly, or even Vala. Or they don't even have like high single target burst, something like a Li Ming that could maybe like pick me off quite quickly. They don't have anything like that. They've got Gul'dan, and he has a lot of damage, but it's AoE damage. Then they've got Gazlo. Apart from that, they've got a bunch of low damage heroes for the most part. So really, there's no huge threat to me actually being killed as Leoric. So my kind of lack of mobility and the sort of slow sustained self-healing I do is actually going to get a ton of value in this game because there's not much threat to me actually dying. Then number 3 as well is their 2 damage dealers. Gul'dan and Gazlo are both very low mobility heroes with no escapes, so they're going to be super vulnerable to the Entomb heroic. We're going to be able to entomb them, they're not going to be able to get out, and we can maybe pick them off and get a lot done, so that's going to be pretty cool. There's actually 4 reasons. Reason number 4 is that I'm going to be able to go in and disrupt the enemy team on our Immortal and get some value out of that. For example, right there, we go and we fight ETC. Leoric's not going to do anything to our Immortal. We go fight ETC, and we just get rid of ETC. ETC's not killing our Immortal, so that's all of his attack speed buffs that he gives to his team gone. That's not actually there helping them, and you can see we just walk away. I mean, Rhaegar was there and healed us, but we would have walked away with 30% HP anyway. Wouldn't have been a big deal. We went in and really disrupted what the enemy team was trying to do with the Immortal. And that means that if they're distracted having to deal with me on Leoric, that means that they're basically not dealing with their Immortal as efficiently, and it's going to help us to win the race. And by the way, this is a really interesting game as well. I'm going to be very critical and very nasty in this game when we get to talking about, well, not nasty, but pretty just harshly critical and kind of uncompromising on the problems. Because I think there's a lot of problems. Like this game, we're two sort of like, the Li Ming player was pretty good. Then like the Rhaegar was kind of like very low diamond, and then the other 2 dudes on our team, the Sylvanas and Sergeant Hammer, were like gold players. And I think like you see a lot of the characteristics of playing with like low diamond and gold players really come through in this game in a number of ways. So I'm going to be like really harsh in pointing them out. I think that should actually be very helpful for you guys, because obviously there's probably a lot of you guys that are in gold and so on, and seeing some of these weaknesses and how they get exploited or can be exploited and punished and stuff like that, or where they go wrong in terms of team fights very clearly, You know, that I'll be able to point out in this game where these gold guys are going wrong very clearly, and that will, I think, hopefully help you guys out a bunch in kind of discerning, you know, what to improve in your particular games. Hopefully you might start spotting some of these mistakes yourself. I think number one, the first mistake is our composition. We've got Sylvanas, Sergeant Hammer, and Li Ming. We've got 3 ranged damage dealers, so it's a shitty composition to start it off, and it makes it very difficult. You're going to see in the team fights, particularly later in the game, very classic sort of gold thing is our teammates are going to be running really scared. We're going to have all these ranged damage dealers running around the back of the fight, not actually coming in and doing any damage in several of these fights. It's going to be a big problem. And part of it, of course, is that, well, they drafted 3 ranged damage dealers, so it becomes actually really difficult to team fight because you're all super freaking squishy. So you can kind of forgive them in that sense, but then they also opted into it themselves, so that kind of removes the forgiveness. It's not like, oh, well, you can forgive their lack of skill because they're playing a very difficult thing. It's like, well, opting into playing a very difficult thing is in itself an example of lacking the skill, if you know what I mean. So, oh well. Anyway, we are here. We're helping with Sergeant Hammer push this in. Unfortunately, our teammates lost like a 3v3 up top pretty badly, and we lost the fort, actually. So, I mean, the enemy team had a pretty decent push with Gul'dan, but I mean, we had Sylvanas and Li Ming and Rhaegar. I thought we honestly had enough to deal with that as it was. So that was kind of unfortunate that we lost that fort. I honestly thought they'd do much better. Myself and Sergeant Hammer tried to push in the bottom as much as we could in return. We didn't get as much value though, unfortunately. And then Li Ming and Sylvanas arrived, but it's already halfway through the Immortal phase, so that's very late to get there. But we'll see what we do. So I'm saying, right, I'm going to stall the enemy team. You guys burst the Immortal down. We should win the race quite dramatically. You see, I'm just using my damage resistance talent, level 4 I picked up. Li Ming and those run past Rhaegar's here as well. So basically, our calls to... Yeah, basically my call completely ignored. Rhaegar is going to die. We almost killed Gaslow, but we don't, unfortunately. And that's 2 of us dead. The enemy team is just going to win the race on the Immortal now. You can see our teammates are being pressured off. Sylvanas is on the run from the Tyrael. Li Ming and Sergeant Hammer are trying to do their best, but it's just not good enough, and the enemy team win the Immortal race. So I think if you look at our composition, we have by far, much more damage to bring against the Immortal. Sergeant Hammer, Rhaegar, Li Ming, Sylvanas, they all do phenomenal amounts of damage to the Immortal, whereas the enemy team has got, you know, Tyrael, ETC, Kharazim, Gul'dan is like AoE damage, and a Gaslow, the turrets get destroyed. They have very little. Like, we should win the race dramatically. It's very simple what our strategy should be in these Immortal phases, which is what I was telling them to do, which is I'm going to stall them out, I'm going to delay them, and then you guys just burst the Immortal. Rotate around if like a big team fight erupts, but for the most part this should work out in our favor, and that will be the way to our victory. Is that, look, we're just going to outrace them. If they try to trade on Immortals, I'm going to slow them down. You guys are going to destroy it far quicker than them. We'll win the race every time, and then we'll win the map, we'll win the game. Simple, easy peasy. Our teammates didn't do that though, and we're kind of getting wrecked because of it. The enemy team has hit level 10. We respawn in the middle of this, but too late to really do anything, and that's 4 of us dead. The fort is going to go down as well. So yeah, we're 8 minutes into this game, and we are 2 forts down. Almost 2 levels down as well. Things are looking really bad. This should look much different. We should have won that second Immortal, and we would have had a very different experience then. Unfortunately, it was not to be. But oh well, we've got an Entomb now, and that will allow us to do some pretty cool things. You'll see I'm sort of instantly looking for pick potential here. We catch Gul'dan or Gaslow in an Entomb. That should help us pick them off pretty well. Even ETC, once Power Slide is down, we could probably get them picked off. Gul'dan goes way too far forwards. Actually, BFG from Sergeant Hammer comes through and finishes them off, which looks very flashy. However, BFG is a terrible talent choice on this map, as opposed to Napalm Strike, which provides scouting in the middle of the map, provides consistent damage against what's going to be very sustained fights, because they are a tanky, low damage but very sustainable team. So Napalm Strike will just generate tons of value over the course of a team fight. Then it also does far more sustained damage, obviously, against the Immortal. So yeah, I don't think there's... Off the top of my head, I can't think of any team composition where you would actually take Blunt Force Gun instead of Napalm Strike on this map. I think it's pretty unforgivable, really. And that's another sort of classic goal mistake, is choosing a vastly inferior heroic for the team fight. There are certain circumstances where you do want to do that, but not in this case. I think I didn't quite watch the chat right there because I was investigating Sergeant Hammer's talents on a different page. But I think I was saying, like, this time, I'll slow them down. You focus the Immortal. Easy. Alright, and if you look at the minimap, you can see our team are already misplaying this. Now they're starting to do it right, but it's already been misplayed. And so we are here disrupting the enemy team. You can see they're not paying too much attention to us this time, though. They're mostly ignoring us. Now the Immortal dies, and I'm going to take a chunk of damage. And I'm actually going to die. Should have probably left a little bit earlier. Was hoping that Entomb would zone them out, but I didn't place it properly, so I do end up going down. But our respawn time, as you can see, is very, very short. Down to 15 seconds already. And this is a... I was going to say it would be a somewhat favorable spawn for us. But you can see our teammates are running very, very scared here. Gaslow's not there, so it is a 4v4. But our teammates are just being really terrified of what's going on here and not really getting any value. Just getting wrecked in that fight. Now I've come back alive again. Gaslow's still not here, so we should really be winning this quite dramatically. Starting to get some damage out. BFG comes out, almost kills Karazim. So at least he's doing pretty well with the BFGs. It's just a bad choice in this situation. Entomb is up shortly. Gul'dan stays way too far forwards and gets blown up, so that's good. We're pushing forwards. You see Gazo is actually just pushing the lane. He's not even with his team. But yeah, we walk away from that whole team fighting segment with Gazo not participating. Should have gone far better for us than it actually did. And it's a big problem, honestly, that it didn't. But yeah, talent picks contributing to that a little bit. To mention my talents, by the way, at level 1 I picked up Hopelessness, which is increasing the range of my Drain Hope. Thought it'd be pretty nice, again, because I could actually land it against nearly anyone on their team. Apart from Gazlowe and Gul'dan, they're very mobile, so those heroes, the mobile heroes, Karazim, ETC, and Tyrael, they might actually break my W leash if they go far enough. This level 1 talent helps me keep them leashed a little bit longer. They don't have anyone on their team that's worth taking block against. Yeah, there's also not a good map for regen globes, so there's no point in taking that. I think that was the best choice in terms of that talent there. You can see at the start of the game I was actually reading over the talents to try to figure out what to pick. Level 4 I picked up Hardened Bones, so we take less damage during Wraith Walk. Again, this just helps us with doing exactly what we intend to do during the Immortal phase, which is stalling out the enemy team while our team wins the Immortal race. That resistant damage is really going to help us to soak up extra damage and just bide more time for our team, which is pretty damn useful. Level 7 then, I went for Paralyzing Rage, which is going to increase the slow that we apply with our skeletal swing with our Q to 60%, which is pretty useful, really. It's pretty useful. It's just going to add a lot more control to our team and help our ranged, again, because they pick triple range, it's going to help them kite back a little bit better and just feel safer in terms of going in and getting advantages. And it'll also help like Li Ming land attacks and stuff against Gul'dan and things like that. And Entomb, of course, I already explained that. Sergeant Hammer dying, shouldn't have been there. Yeah, I get picked off by the mosh pit. That's actually a big win, right? If you look, I have a 30-second death timer. By the time this ends, you can see we've already cheated death for 4 seconds. So realistically, we probably have like a 20-second death timer by the end of this. So that's a big win for us. He spent a 120-second cooldown in order to trigger a 20-second death timer. No complaints from me. That's actually a big win for us. You can see I'm going to respawn here. Our teammates are coming around. ETC unfortunately has arrived, so that makes this a little bit difficult, and I've already respawned as he appears. Gonna land the Entomb and Gul'dan. And this, watch this. Watch our ranged damage dealers. They're just very scared to actually go in. Sylvanas comes in, fires 3 arrows, and then runs away. And the rest of our team are running away as well. So that's what I'm talking about. There's really just a lot of fear in how they're fighting the team fight. When I'm getting focused down, they're too scared to actually go in and fight. And there's nothing that much to be scared of. Like, sure, they have Tyrael and ETC who can dive on top of you and do a bit of a chunk of damage, to be fair to you. But you've got Rhaegar keeping you alive. And on the enemy team, they've got Gazlowe and Gul'dan at the damage. They're very slow to follow. Gul'dan has range, for sure, but Gul'dan is sustained damage, and Gul'dan has to run over to get in range to hit you if ETC and Tyrael do dive you in the back line. He has to run all the way over to get on top of you. And then Gazlowe, I mean, what's he going to do? He's going to, like, run at you and and build a turret beside you. Again, it's nothing really to be very scared about, nothing that you can't escape from. So that's like that's a big problem with them. Unfortunately, we get a little bit of visual lag, but we were going to miss our W anyway. It wasn't very well placed. We got a Hearthstone. I come back for this, but it is a full shield immortal. 14 minutes in, pushing a keep. This is a dead keep either way. We'll see what we can make out of this situation with... it is a 4v3 at the moment, so maybe we can make something happen. It would be pretty good. Level 13, I picked up Crushing Hope, which, if our Drain Hope lasts the full duration, does 10% max health bonus damage. So that's going to help us, again, just bursting people down, and makes it even more important for the enemy team to sort of avoid that ability when it's on them. Unfortunately, I miss it there, which is a pretty bad mistake in this situation. It just skims past Karazim. Should probably aim for someone else. Oh well. And then at level 16, I'm going to pick up Unyielding Despair in this game. So every second Drain Hope is active, it reduces the cooldown by 1 second. So it lets us just... again, nice synergies between all of those talents. We got the level 1 talent, which improves the range, helps us keep Drain Hope up more often and last longer, makes it harder to break, which then synergizes nicely with reducing the cooldown while ever it's not broken, and then also doing bonus damage if it doesn't get broken. So all those synergize very well together. Sort of the W build. I'm actually thinking about other builds. I'll mention those at the end of the video. But a couple of things to mention first. Number one, I would say, while we're fighting, you can see, look at the top lane, right? Look at this, misplay. Huge misplay happening at the moment. Talk about why, so I'm going to die. I'll talk about it in a second. First of all, that fight around the keep, like I said, full shield immortal. This late in the game, the keep is dead. But we were 4v3. So when I threw the Entomb down, what we should have done is just ignored the immortal, killed a couple of enemy team members, got some XP for ourselves, removed them from the map, then finished off the immortal. We weren't going to kill the immortal before kill the keep, so it was a bit of a waste of time actually focusing the immortal instead, which is what a couple of our teammates did. So that's like a kind of classic mistake as well. Yeah, basically meant we didn't get any kills. The immortal, of course, still killed the keep, but the enemy team walked away. So yeah, I think that's something that's worth noting right there. The big mistake I was talking about over that bruiser thing was we went for the bruiser fight. I wanted you guys to notice at the top of the map, nice work by Li Ming aiming that, that's good. The Entombs, when our teammates act on them, are working well. But yeah, at the top of the map, Gasso is pushing in. Sylvanas and Sergeant Hammer, again, they're both the two gold players. Both of them went to defend. Do you need both Sylvanas and Sergeant Hammer to defend against the Gasso push? No, of course not. You only need one, right? You only need one of them. So they're way overcommitting resources to stopping a push that they don't need to. One of those heroes could have been with us. And we saw then that the enemy team was invading the Bruiser camp. We started a fight over the Bruiser. Honestly, very good play would be Li Ming, or excuse me, not Li Ming, either the Sylvanas or the Sergeant Hammer would have been there from the start. They would have been there from the very start. We're fighting under the Immortal, so this should work out for us. I think, again, this is going to turn into a misplay. I'm going to talk about this. Let's just watch this team fight, and then I'll break down these last two sort of fights where I think there's big mistakes made. But I think Sergeant Hammer is making a big mistake at this point. I think up until now, up until about the point where she'd fired her blunt force gun, she was doing the right thing. I think after that point, she's doing the wrong thing. Rhaegar dies trying to fight a turret. And there you go, they're down. So what I'm thinking at this point is, that's 4 of us dead. I'm going to try respawn here and just slow the enemy team down. I basically want to respawn and just distract them as much as possible. So Rhaegar is getting very negative. This is another thing that will go through the last few minutes of this game and even beyond this game. Ooh, how exciting. We're going to see some nice things from Rhaegar. But yeah, right, at this point I just want to sort of slow them down, delay them. Just draw them away. I was going to go the other way. Unfortunately, there's turrets laid out there. And Tyrael and Karazim are coming for me. I think Gul'dan actually did turn around and go for the Immortal. So I was hoping to distract them some more. Well, on the W, you're just keeping me alive a little bit longer. I'm going to die. Rhaegar's pinging me. I mean, once we stayed around to respawn there was nothing we could do. So it's, again, you know, it's just very bitter, very salty pings. Not very helpful. But yeah, basically the idea of what I was doing is trying to bait them away. I was hoping to bait away again the Gul'dan. Just wanted to slow them down to give our team time to respawn and get there. You'll notice that my respawn timer, once again, as Leoric, is very low. So we're actually going to be back for the fight by the time the Immortal arrives. The enemy team at level 20 anyway, so that didn't matter. Rhaegar is continuing to ping me. I'm just trying to scout it out to see what's there. So I'm going to ping Rhaegar some more. And hilariously, Rhaegar's actually looks like gonna die because he was pinging and paying attention to other people instead of himself. So I'm having great fun at this stage of the game, just pinging him. He's being really nasty because he's just a bit of a jerk. I was trying to entomb someone, didn't quite work out. And we do get focused down here. Gonna escape just about. But at this stage, it's looking pretty bad. ETC does land in Mosh Pit, does pick off. Ooh, almost pick off Li Ming as well. Even almost pick off me, but we make it back just about in time. Ooh, Sergeant Hammer just about making it back in time as well. But this is full health Immortal on the core, plus Robo Goblin Gazlowe. So that's why we sort of fall apart. And there you go. So I do have a couple of things, again, to break down about those. The final couple of team fights. The thing over the Bruiser camp I want to talk about again. And the thing about... then that final Immortal fight over the Immortals as well I want to talk about again. We'll check out like the stats and the talent stuff first though, and then we'll get into that sort of breakdown as we have the sort of sped up replay or slowed down replay in the background, whichever it happens to be this time around. Anyway, we soak 25% more damage than similar players on Leoric, so that's okay, I guess. We're solo tank, so that's a bit more unusual. You can see the stats right there. Karazim did over double what Rhaegar did. I really don't think the Rhaegar pick is very good at all, but oh well. Here's the talents: Hopelessness, Hardened Bones, Paralyzing Rage, Entomb, Crushing Hope, and Unyielding Despair. Would have picked Spectral Leech at level 20, didn't get that far. Anyway, I think he's just insulting us, so I'm saying, throwing in something that's probably vaguely racist, but you know what? I figured that he was saying something nasty, and then, you know, I have no idea what he said. In fact, someone, if you want to let me know what he said, that would be great. But I do think, you know what? When someone sends you a mess, when someone is being spam pinging people throughout the game, then whispers you after the game, and then they block you immediately afterwards, you can bet that they're almost definitely said something really nasty. So I just reported him. I'm pretty sure that was justified, but oh well. It was the first time I've ever been insulted by someone in Russian, so I was kind of flattered in a way. But yeah, okay, to go over those final couple of fights, right? So first of all, we had the Bruiser situation. So like I said, invested overly much in defending against the top Gazlowe push. Like I said, good play would have been for one of the heroes that was defending against that to not be defending and to actually be moving preemptively to defend the Bruiser camp, knowing that the enemy team could be attempting to contest it, and that would be a good point to actually fight them. Instead, they didn't actually make a move until there was that fight over the Bruiser camp, right? They didn't actually move until after the Bruiser camp had started. In fact, we could see the enemy team was on the Bruiser camp and they still hadn't moved. In fact, I think it was by the time that I was actually dead, or basically dead, that was the point at which the Sylvanas started moving down. So way too late in terms of that rotation and in terms of contesting there and maybe getting a kill or something like that. Way too slow, and it went horribly wrong. So I think that's a very gold sort of mistake, is not realizing where the good point of contention is, investing too much into something that doesn't need to be invested in, that is defending against the Gazlowe, and then rotating down after the team fight's already been lost because you're too late, and then just, you know, running half the way there and then just running back the way you came again because it's too late. You know, that's a very goal thing to do. But anyway, then finally, I think with the Sergeant Hammer on the Immortal, that was really interesting, right? So I think it was correct at the start to do what she was doing, which was staying on the Immortal and getting free damage. Because, again, if we do like a 4-1 split, where the four of us go and disrupt the enemy team, while Sergeant Hammer gets sort of free, slow damage down, you know, that's cool, we're slowly winning an advantage. However, I think there came a point very clearly during that team fight where we were just going to lose that horribly. I think that happened very clearly. I think like it even started off with us getting a potential pick off on a hero. And I think that at that point, it becomes really important to abandon that 4-1 strategy. Because if you don't abandon it, then exactly what happened in this fight, and I think this is really important, and a lot of people aren't going to like this, but this is very important for you guys, right? Is that, like, sure, Sergeant Ham, she's got a pretty good idea, which is, yeah, you go in, earning that slow damage while the 4-man team defends and slows things down. Pretty good idea. You know, you don't want your 4-man team to overcommit. Okay, that's fine. They don't overcommit. They don't get, you know, if they don't get themselves killed, you're sort of slowly winning. You know, that's a good theory. But she stuck with that to the bitter end. And what did that result in? It resulted in her whole team getting wiped. Then, of course, you lose the Immortal anyway, massively, because it's a 1v4. There's a 1v5, excuse me. There's absolutely nothing you can do. You just lose the Immortal and then lost the game because of that. I think that, looking at that final team fight, I think probably at the start, considering the sort of positioning that was at the start of that fight, I'm just looking at the rewind while it happens. Yeah, considering we were all nearby, I don't think she should have split away from the team in the first place, but considering we caught Gaza out of position, I think she should have rotated up immediately and tried to join that fight over at the Immortal and tried to fight a defensive 5v5. I think actually probably right from the start of that, from the point where she pinged she's going to stay on the Immortal, I think that's actually a mistake. And then when she saw the team fight going to shit, she should have then turned around, abandoned her strategy, and tried to salvage what was happening in the team fight. Because she didn't do that, it was 4 of us died for 1 person on the enemy team. And yeah, then we lost the game because of that. So I think that's really important, is the ability to adapt your strategies and to abandon them for basically based on what's happening on the map, being a bit more flexible in terms of your strategy. And just because, you know, a 1-4 split with Sergeant Hammer on the Immortal is a good strategy and there's value to it, there's so much that happens within a game in terms of execution, in terms of positioning, in terms of just like Gazo being out of position and the possibility of collapsing and getting a pick, or then at the point where you realize that the team fight has been engaged and it is going to go badly and that they're not going to be able to retreat out. There has to be a point where you acknowledge that, you realize that, and then act on it and change your strategy. And if you don't do it, if you stick with your strategy, it's going to be, there gets a certain point where your strategy becomes the less good one, which is I think when we kind of found people a bit out of position. And then there's also another point where your strategy becomes a losing strategy. And then at that point you really have to abandon it, but she stuck with it, and at the point where it had become a losing strategy, and you know, we got 4-man killed and lost the game. I think that's kind of interesting, and I think that's a good point to end the video as well. Pretty in-depth. I think people probably won't like this one very much. We died a lot on Leoric. I think people are going to point a lot of fingers and be very negative about this, and also that's some sort of higher order like strategy and strategic thinking that's going on there that people might not like. I can imagine there's going to be a lot of comments going like, oh, but Sergeant Hammer was you know, killing the Immortal, you should have done the 4-1 split. You know, it's like the strategic thinking goes as far as that's a good strategy, okay, or you know, that's a viable strategy, it can work, and then it just goes, well, if that's a good strategy, that's what you do, and then there's no development beyond that, there's no response to the needs of the game and so on. So they just go, well, it's you guys' fault for dying, and to an extent like certainly was, but also at the same time we didn't know Sergeant Hammer was going bottom and would not come around until it was too late. It was one of those really interesting things, right? But I don't think that her staying down there was a good point, that you have to at a certain point change. I mean, especially that late in the game where Sergeant Hammer's damage on the Immortal is actually quite low and slow, especially without Napalm Strike. But anyway, yeah, I could see this one being pretty controversial, but I think there were some really good things that go into it. And again, seeing like a lot of sort of the low diamond rage, even from Rhaegar, I think sort of shows as well some of the frustrations going into that he didn't spot the strategy and was just very salty. I think it's kind of interesting. Very interesting game for a number of levels. Yeah, I think it's pretty cool. There you go. Anyway, lots of stuff in that one. Give it a thumbs up if you liked it, guys, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.